importing a protocol to run the prompts and the templates to support the cardiorenal metabolic searches is slightly harder than importing a search. Again, you have to make sure that you're in the right place in EMIS. So in the EMIS ball, you have to run down and find Configuration and Template Manager. Now, not everyone will have Configuration and Template Manager. It may just be practice managers, it may be administration. Generally, you have to be a higher level GP to have the RBAC code that gives you Template Manager. But if it's there, you do need to be in Template Manager. And here is where I'd recommend creating a new folder for the import. So if I'm in this page here and I choose to create a new folder, so I'm going to ask it to add a folder here, and I would call this the QI 2025 folder. Now, when you're importing the protocol and templates and concepts, there's two other areas where you'll need to make a folder as well. So if you look at where my mouse is going here, to the left of the screen, it's hovering over the templates and protocols. Just to the right of that, you need to click this little button or this little arrow to go to library items. And this is where the template sits. So if you want to be able to open a template from the prompts, where you double click on the prompts, they actually have to be a thing called a library item to open them. And so we're going to be importing those library items here. So again, I'd click on your practice and add a folder. And this is where I'll call this the QI 2025 folder again. We're also going to need to import concepts for this. And if you follow my mouse and head up towards the ribbon at the top of the page, you can see where it says Template Manager here. To the right of that, we need to go to Concept Manager. And inside Concept Manager, again, you'll need to create a folder for the concepts. Now, I would create a folder perhaps called QI 2025. Now, occasionally, when we're importing this protocol, it may crash. And when that happens, it does happen occasionally, you just click OK and import it again. But when you import again, it'll be slightly unhappy importing more concepts into a folder that's already had concepts saved into it. I wouldn't worry too much about the detail of this, but at this point here, it can be handy to have another folder inside that folder called Spare. Now at this point, we're ready to import that protocol. So I want to go back to Template Manager up here. And if I'm in Template Manager, I'm then going to go to the QI 2025 folder and simply, this is the library items. So if this is library items, I need to go back to templates and protocols. And at that point, I need to go back to the QI 2025 folder. And here I'll need to go up to the little box and click Import. Then I'll need to find that cardiorenal-metabolic prompts file. And I know it's on my desktop. So I need to click on Desktop here. And you can either download this from a website or from an email. It really doesn't matter. If you try and open that up, it'll look like gobbledygook to most of us. But it's an XML file. So I mean, I think it will open and show you some words, but it'll be hard to understand it. Here is where you just need to choose cardiorenal metabolic prompts. Now, it's telling me I'm replacing templates that I already have, which is true because I've written them and I've exported them and I'm importing them back. You won't get this page if you were updating it. So if you were thinking, right, if you're downloading it because we've suggested we've made additional differences, if we get a PDSI cycle or two and people make suggestions to me and I change that, I'm quite happy to say to people, right, we'll update the protocol. So you may want to import updated versions as you go. I know that there will be issues and glitches. I'm sure there's going to be improvements and suggestions, so please do contact me if you find any issues or want to make any suggestions. So if they already exist and they're going to be overwritten, I just say yes to that. You won't get the box if you've not got them before. At this point here, you will be asked, do you want to overwrite existing concepts? Now, this will show you a few concepts, and you may feel a little wary of overwriting concepts that are already in your system. This is when we haven't been able to make them ourselves. So usually they're concepts that are based on age or gender, and we just cannot overwrite or make new ones of those. I was discussing the same issue with companies in England who supply similar protocols and prompts, and there's no way around this. They still work, that we've not edited them or altered them in any way. We can't do that. And EMIS regularly refreshes, I think it's nightly, most nights, and will refresh those concepts anyway. Sometimes if you do play too much with concepts within EMIS, which I suspect not many of us have done, you can end up altering some of these concepts and worry that you've done something terrible to the system, only to find that it got refreshed anyway and no harm was done. So I don't think they trust this too much. But regardless, you may get a list of concepts here for overwriting, and just click yes. Now, this can take a little while. And one of the things I should warn people is that most of the time, it'll simply show the protocol. Sometimes whilst importing, it'll crash and you'll get an EMIS crash notice where it'll ask you, do you want to carry on or exit? At that point, I would just click carry on and try importing again. It doesn't happen often, it does happen occasionally. Whenever I try importing for a second time, it imports without any problems. It does come up to say you're overwriting the templates. The only difficulty you have if it crashes is that when you get to the point where it asks you where you want to save your concepts, if you choose the QI 2025 concepts folder, it'll tell you it can't because it's already got the concept with that name saved there. So if it does crash and you do have to run again, it didn't this time for me, if it does crash and you do have to run again, when it comes to that point of choosing where you want to save the concepts, so we said I want to save them into the QI 2025 folder, it won't let you second time around. At that point, just save them into the spare and it should work without any difficulty. I was rather hoping it might crash so I could show that. And this is I've tried a couple of times this evening to see if I can get a demonstration video of it crashing, and it's working frustratingly well for me. One of the things you will need to do when you've imported that protocol, at the moment it's doing nothing. You're very welcome to have a look at it. You're very welcome to play with it. It can be useful to see how these things work. It's very similar to the old QOF protocols where there's lots of concepts and alerts and triggers. And if you do, you could always save a copy and have a play. I'd encourage people to sort of understand how it works. But at the moment, it won't do anything. You need to set this up so that it's triggered to run every time you open a patient record, in the same way that the EMIS-based QOF protocols and templates run every time you open a patient's record. So you'll need to click Properties, or right-click on Cardio-Renal Metabolic Prompt and click Properties here. And at this point, you'll have to select Triggers and then Add, and we're going to add a system trigger up here, which is every time we load a patient record, we would like this template to run. And what that means is that when you now look, if you've imported the searches and run them, and if you look at any of the patients there and open them up, you will see the prompts and the alerts there. And if you double click on them, it'll take you to the template. My only caution is that if it crashes, please don't panic. I've had that happen quite a few times. I think it may be to do with how busy it is. So I find occasionally if I do this in the evening, it's no problem. If I do it in the day, there may be an issue with memory on computers, etc.